Welcome to this webinar, which looks at configuring the furlough scheme, VAT deferrals, rent rescheduling, and general cash management within foreCASH. COVID and lockdown have triggered a number of government support schemes. From version 2.99.30, foreCASH includes some new features to reflect these. Looking first at furlough, if you're making use of the furlough scheme, your options for modelling this are to either use the general features within foreCASH or to use the new option. The general features you could use would be to include furlough as a form of sundry income or to enter it as a negative cost or a negative overhead. But let's focus here on using the new specific feature. The furlough option applies to monthly base salaries. If you go to an existing monthly base salary and look for the third tab, Advanced Options, you'll find a checkbox to say that the furlough or rebate applies. Having checked this box, you can also specify when the receipt of the furlough amount will come in. This is relative to your normal payroll run. So if you're expecting the refund on the same day as you pay your staff, then put 0. If you think you'll get the money a couple of days before, put in a negative number, or a few days after, put 2 or 3. Now, back on the main tab for that salary cost, you'll see a column appears for furlough. You can enter the monthly repayment amount as required. So here I've got a reducing amount as the scheme evolves. Please note that currently furlough isn't applicable to employee list-based salary records, so please use the fixed or variable options. If you have already got some employee-based salaries set up and you want to still apply furlough, then just create a dummy record. That can have 0 base cost, but it will still allow you to put in a furlough receipt amount. So we've just looked at how you'd set up new furlough recoverable amounts. If you've got an opening amount that's recoverable, within your opening data, salaries and taxes screen at the bottom right, you'll have a box denoting any furlough that's due to you from previous periods. If you click on the edit button, then you can specify the date that you expect the money to come in on. In terms of how that impacts your forecast for the cash flow and the profit and loss, within the salary payment lines, you click into the detail and you'll see there's a separate row there for furlough. So in the example here, we've got normal salary cost payments going out and national insurance PAYE going out, and a separate line showing the furlough receipt from HMRC. Within the P&L, again, you'll see the base costs and employer's national insurance, pension if applicable, and then you'll see a separate line highlighting that actually there's some funding for that salary occurring, so it's going to reduce your profit and loss charge. Let's move on now to think about VAT. At the start of your forecast, you're likely to have some existing VAT liabilities, and that liability could be split across 3 different boxes. In this example, we've got a forecast starting on the 1st of May. Previous VAT quarter ended on February 20. You'd normally do your return on a quarterly basis, so the return had to be in by the end of March, and you'd either pay the VAT in late March, or if you're paying electronically, it might even be up to the 9th of April that you have to pay for the amount. So in this example, we'd expect by default that liability to be 0 and already paid. The other part of the opening liability we have here is that we're actually part way through a new quarter. So we've got 2 months worth of activity for March and April. Once that quarter's closed with May activity, then VAT will be paid on the relevant date. And the last area where you may have an opening liability is if you've got some VAT which is specifically in arrears or on a payment plan. In this case, I'd click on the edit button and specify when that overdue VAT was going to be paid. So if this was part of the government's deferral scheme and the amount was being paid in March 2021, I can scroll through a calendar view and specify the amount due. In this case, I put £10,000 on the 31st of March 2020. And those 3 boxes together give me the total opening VAT liability. Now, as well as past liabilities that are being deferred, there is also the option in foreCASH latest version to specify that some future VAT returns are also going to be deferred. Now, this is driven by setting up the rules and drivers for VAT. And if you look at the bottom right of that screen, you'll find a new box for planned VAT deferrals. By default, that will be 0, but if in this case, my current quarter, which I'm partway through, I also want to defer, I would specify that the first or one further return is also going to be deferred, and I can then decide how that's going to be deferred. Option 1 would be to defer it by a certain number of months, or I can specify a specific month and year for the deferral to occur. So in this case, I've checked the box and say, actually, I'm going to defer that payment again until March 2021 to align with the government scheme. So the cash flow impact of that, by way of an example, would be my June payment from the end of the quarter ending May would be 0 because the amount's deferred. I then got my normal quarters in September and December, but then March 2021, I had my £10,000 opening deferral, my June deferral, and then just a normal quarters activity. We're also seeing a number of clients who are stating that they've agreed rent deferrals during the period of lockdown, and they want to model that. There are a number of ways of doing that, but probably the simplest, looking at this example here, is we have VAT that's rent that's normally paid on a quarterly basis, £12,000 plus VAT a quarter, so 14,400. Ordinarily, we just let foreCASH handle that and schedule the payments on a quarterly basis. But what we could do is then change the schedule to say, actually, this cost now needs to be paid on a manual basis. So £4,000 plus VAT a month, 4,800. And in this example, we've just assumed we've got 7 or 8 months without any rental payments, then a few months where we're paying 2 months at a time to help catch up before reverting to a quarterly payment base in September 21. So you've got a lot of flexibility there to make sure the payments are aligned with what you've agreed with your landlord. The last area that you can use for rescheduling within foreCASH is the pre-existing manual rescheduling options. Now, these would typically be used once you've completed the base position for your forecast. If you create manual rescheduling and then want to go back and start changing key fundamentals in the forecast, high-level sales details, or the entire structure, it will actually say manual reschedule items will be cleared to allow you to make those big structural changes. So this would really be, you've made all the major changes and you've potentially got a couple of peak points where you're managing cash. And then you could go in, find a specific payment, go through the monthly cash view, drill into the weekly view, and then even down to the daily view, select a payment which is causing a particular spike, and if you think it's manageable to reschedule that, then either right-click on it to defer it by, say, a week, as shown on the screen, or you can click and drag drop and move the amount to another day. But as stated, that would typically be used if you've got a forecast and you've got a few final pinch points to address, or if you're managing cash flow tightly and using foreCASH particularly for, say, a 13-week rolling cash flow forecast, then as you go through a month, you could confirm the actual amounts or drag and drop and defer if you held things back for an extra few days here or there. But there's more details on using those main feature cash deferment methods and cash management methods in video reference V1000 URLs on the screen. So that gives you a brief overview of how COVID schemes can be set up within foreCASH and how to use other general cash management features. If you need any further help, please contact us via email or phone. In the meantime, thank you for watching.